Hello everyone, myself Dr. Dinesh Vaishnav. Today we are going to see a small topic in human physiology, the circulatory system. Here we are going to see the role of heart, blood and blood vessels. As we all know that how important heart is for our body, we are going to see all the functions of the heart into it. This is the heart which is being located in the center of the lungs and tilted towards the left. This is your left lung, this is your right lung. Towards the left lung, you can see there is this notch. This notch is known as a heart pouch or cardiac notch. It's a heart pouch or cardiac notch. So this is due to the tilting of the heart, where you can see towards the left lung only. Moving towards the next slide. Here, this is a picture of heart. We'll be having the four compartments of heart. That is your left auricle, left ventricle, right auricle, right ventricle. Now, left auricle and left ventricle, this would be having one bicuspid valve, also known as mitral valve. Valve means what? It is preventing backflow of the blood. Now, it is bicuspid valve means it is having two flaps of blood muscles which would be preventing backflow of the blood. In right auricle and right ventricle, you will be having tricuspid valve. That means it is having three flaps of muscles which is preventing backflow of the blood. In left auricle and aorta is the biggest artery. Here you will be having the semilunar valve. Semi means half. Lunar is like moon shape. So half crescent shape. You can see the valve. That is why the name is semilunar valve over here. Between two auricles, you will be having interatrial septum, and between two ventricles, you will be having interventricular septum. And atrioventricular septum, you will be having tricuspid valve and bicuspid valve. So questions would be asked on this also, like where the locations of tricuspid and bicuspid valve. Tricuspid valve is present in the right side of the heart, that is right auricle and right ventricle, and bicuspid valve is present between left auricle and left ventricle. Okay, so this is regarding the bicuspid valve, mitral valve, tricuspid valve, okay, and seminal valve that is present in aorta and left ventricle. Now, this is the position of the heart over here, as I told you. Here, only this part we cannot see any valves. Everywhere you will be seeing the valves, but only this part between left auricle and the lungs, that is a pulmonary vein which is carrying oxygenated blood from lungs towards the heart. This vein and the heart won't be having any valves. Here, sphincter type muscle is present, which can be seen in the digestive system, which is preventing the backflow of the food. Here also we will be having the sphincter muscle and not the valves. So we need to understand this part. Here, as I told, this is a cardiac notch. This is so close to each other that here there is no need of any valves over here, and we will be having the sphincter muscle. Now this sphincter muscle is actually behaving like a valve only. Now two from each, that is right lung and left lung, it would be carrying its oxygenated blood towards the left auricle. From left auricle it would be passing into left ventricle through bicuspid valve, and from here aorta is attached towards the left ventricle. Here you can see the semilunar valve, and this is the aorta. Aorta is the biggest artery and arteriole is the smallest artery. Arteries divide and redivide to form capillaries. Now capillaries would be the factor which is responsible for exchange of gases at tissue level. If the question is asked at what level the gases exchange is happening, it is happening at tissue level, which is done by the capillaries. Arteries would be dividing and redividing to form the capillaries. Capillaries unite and reunite to form the veins. Biggest vein is vena cava. In that we will be having two veins, that is superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Okay, smallest vein would be venules, which would be attached to the capillaries. So aorta would be dividing to form the capillaries over here. Here the exchange of gases is happening. So CO2 is over here. So CO2 is present in the form of bicarbonates. This is also one of the question in the NEET. Okay, so HCO3 minus. In this form, this CO2 is present over here. Hemoglobin has came from the lungs towards here and have given its oxygen to this tissue wherever is required, and have taken this CO2 form and has traveled towards the right auricle. From right auricle, it is passing into right ventricle through tricuspid valve. Now, from right ventricle, it is going back to the lungs through pulmonary valves, that is pulmonary arteries. Okay, one thing we need to understand that here towards the heart, if something is coming towards the heart, it has to be veins, and something is going away from the heart, it has to be arteries. Okay, this is our code word to understand. Something is attached to the lungs, it is pulmonary. So something is carried from pulmonary to heart, it is pulmonary veins. Coming towards the heart, pulmonary veins. Going towards the lungs, pulmonary artery, that is going away from the heart, that's why it's pulmonary artery. Okay, now when we are talking about the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, here we need to understand one part, like parts above the heart would be carried deoxygenated blood from superior vena cava, that is hand, head, neck. These parts would be giving its deoxygenated blood in right auricle through superior vena cava, and parts below the heart would be carrying deoxygenated blood through inferior vena cava. Now, this both would be carrying its deoxygenated blood and pouring into right auricle. Now, here we need to understand parts above the heart and parts below the heart. It's not covering the full body as heart itself is remaining. So, we'll be having one more circulation, that is a coronary circulation. That is coronary artery and coronary veins. So, coronary veins, in that you will be having coronary sinus. So, coronary sinus would be the part which is the biggest vein in heart. So, biggest vein in the heart is coronary sinus, which would be collecting deoxygenated blood from the heart and would be pouring itself in the right auricle. So, coronary artery, so this is a branch off from the aorta and deliver oxygen rich blood to the heart, that is muscle myocardium. Now, when we are talking about the muscle of myocardium, it is having a pericardium layer. So, it is a covering, there is a covering of a pericardium layer which would be having a pericardial fluid. It is having a pericardial fluid, and this fluid would be acting as an shock absorbent. Okay, so in the pericardial membrane, you will be having pericardial fluid which would be acting as an shock absorbent. Okay, now regarding coronary veins, as I told you, the biggest vein would be coronary sinus, and this coronary arteries and coronary veins together form the coronary circulation. Now, here we can see how this system is working. From the lungs, pulmonary veins, as I told you, veins are going towards the heart. So, something is going towards the heart, it has to be veins. Attached to the lungs, it has to be pulmonary. Okay. Now, pulmonary veins going and attached towards the left auricle. From left auricle, it's going towards the left ventricle. Now, we know what is that valve. It is a bicuspid valve, as I told you, or mitral valve you can say. From mitral valve, it's pouring its oxygenated blood into left ventricle, passing towards the aorta. While giving it to aorta, it would be passing through what? It is having semilunar valve. Okay, also known as aortic valve. Aortic valve. Okay, now blood would be passing, that is a deoxygenated blood or oxygenated blood. It is oxygenated blood passing from left ventricle in the aorta through what? Semilunar valve or aortic valve. This aorta, that is the biggest artery, would be passing its blood towards the tissues through what? Capillaries. So arteries divide and redivide to form what? Capillaries over here. It would be giving its oxygen towards the tissues and taking what? Carbon dioxide, which is present in the form of HCO3 minus, that is a bicarbonate form. Now this Hb would be taking its deoxygenated blood from the tissues and passing towards what? Towards the right auricle. Here we can say capillaries unite and reunite to form veins. Here we will be having superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. So main vein is your vena cava, which is pouring deoxygenated blood into the right auricle. From right auricle, the deoxygenated blood is passed into what? Right ventricle through what? Tricuspid valve. Okay. So from right ventricle, it is giving back to the lungs. Now as I told you, something is going away from the heart, it has to be artery. Attached to the lungs, pulmonary. So here also it is going away from the heart, it is also going away from the heart. So both of them you can say it is arteries. Okay. Attached to the lungs, it has to be pulmonary in nature. So these two are veins, these two are arteries. Crisscross manner, you can remember it like that. Okay. As I told you, like biggest artery is aorta, smallest artery is arteriole, biggest vein is vena cava. Here also we will be having the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Parts above the heart would be collecting deoxygenated blood from superior vena cava, and parts below the heart would be collecting deoxygenated blood from inferior vena cava. Okay, smallest vein is venules. Arteries divide, redivide to form capillaries, and capillaries unite and reunite to form veins. Okay, so here types of carotid artery is brain, coronary artery is heart, and hepatic artery is kidney. So wherever this the names would be changing according to the organs. Okay. Now we need to understand like how this pumping of heart is happening. As we know, like 70 to 75 times the heartbeat is happening, but how it is happening? Here we need to understand, we will be having assay node. This assay node is also known as pacemaker. It's a natural pacemaker in the body, in the heart, which is present in the upper right auricle corner. Here, this pacemaker is auto-excitable in nature. Auto-excitable means what? No external pressure is needed. It is auto-exciting by itself, and that's why whole heart is functioning in a proper manner. Now you might be knowing, if this is not working, now we also have the artificial pacemakers, which is actually giving the same function in the heart. Okay. Okay, moving back to the topic. Here we will be having assay node, that is a pacemaker. This is giving atrial contraction. So when I am talking about the atrial contraction, I am talking both about right auricle and right ventricle. Sorry, right auricle and left auricle. Both the auricles I am talking about. So both the auricles would be contracted together, and respective blood, that is oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, would be passed from left auricle to left ventricle, right auricle to right ventricle. That is oxygenated, deoxygenated blood respectively. So from here, both the sides blood would be passed. So here it would be having oxygenated blood, and this would be having what? Deoxygenated blood. This would be passed respectively due to this assay node, that is a pacemaker. It would be contracted, that is a systole of atrial, systolic pressure, and this would be given, and blood would be passed from auricles to ventricles here. Okay. Now next part we need to understand that there is something called pace setter. Now pace setter means what? During this is being compressed, pace setter would be having bundle of his, a branch of bundle of his towards both the sides. Now this would be further divided into Purkinje fibers. This would be further divided into Purkinje fibers. Now what is happening over here? This bundle of his would be connected towards what? This AV node. AV node would be a pace setter in nature. Now AV node would be giving this pulse to this bundle of his. Bundle of his would be passing it towards the Purkinje fibers. Now all this together would be forming what? Ventricular pressure. Now, when we are talking about ventricular pressure, that means the bottom part would be compressed, that is contracted. At that time, diastole would be happening in the atria. So here what is happening? During this time, ventricular contraction is happening, that is ventricular systole is happening. At the same time, you can say atrial diastole would be happening, relaxation of atrial would be happening over here. So here, when ventricular pressure is there, it would be giving its oxygenated and deoxygenated blood to its respective arteries only. Ventricles would be giving it to arteries and atrial would be collecting blood from veins. This way also you can remember it. Okay. Now here it is attached to the pulmonary artery over here. This is attached to the aorta over here. So what is happening? Oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood would be pressed and passed through these respective arteries. Okay. As we have seen, like the contraction of atrials, now we need to understand, you might have seen ECG, electrocardiogram in hospitals. Okay, so straight BP is happening, so you know that person is dead. Okay, so always the life has to be up and down. You can go with that also. This is a P wave, PQRST. Now when we are talking about the P wave, so here I'll just draw a rough sketch. Now what is happening over here? This both when contracted, atrial contraction is happening, at that time you will be having this P wave. When right auricle and left auricle are compressed together, at that time that pressure is being countered and this wave would be seen. Now this is your atrial depolarization. Atrial depolarization also you can call it as atrial systole. Okay, atrial contraction. Anybody you can use it over here. So atrial systole, atrial contraction. So this P wave would be followed by QRS. QRS is your ventricular depolarization. That means there is a systole pressure in the ventricles. That is due to what? Due to AV node. Okay, this would be your due to sinoauricular node, and this is due to your atrioventricular node. Okay. Now, ventricular depolarization, you will be having this wave that QRS, and at the last ventricular repolarization. That means after the contraction of the ventricles, what is happening? It is coming to the back to the normal. That is your repolarization. Now, if somebody is asking you which is a complete wave, a wave starts from, the question is there like P to P, P to T. Actually, a complete wave is from T to T. This is one of the neat question. Okay, it's a PYQ. So, a complete wave starts and ends from T to T only. Okay, this was all about the blood circulation in the heart and ECG. Thanks a lot, students.